Here we are in Word, and I've got a mock-up of a paper here. This is actually one that I published a few years ago, but it will work for the purpose of demonstration. The first thing we're going to want to do is to format the actual body of the text. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is to make sure that the margins are of the correct size. Now, luckily, Word by default has these set at 1 inch all the way around. And that's actually what you want. You want your paper to have 1 inch margins left, right, top, and bottom. Now, that should be good by default, but if it's not, you can simply come up to here to the Layout tab, click on Margins on the far left, and you've got normal set here, which is 1 inch all the way around. You can also click on Custom Margins and set them in that way. Next up, we're going to add double spacing throughout the entire manuscript. This just gives reviewers plenty of space to write comments when they're considering your manuscript. Perhaps you made mistakes that they want to highlight. Perhaps they want to make comments about something you've written. So to do that, hit Control A, highlight the entire manuscript. We're going to go to the Home tab, go to Paragraph and Spacing in this little section here. Click this drop down and click on Double. Now it's also customary to add a 1 inch indent on the first line of each paragraph, except for the first paragraph of each section. For example, we have the introduction here. We're not going to indent this first paragraph, but every paragraph after that, you can simply hit Tab to add a nice little indent. And what this does is it just makes it easier to read. It's very easy for your eye to follow the end of one paragraph and the beginning of the next paragraph. Now, the next thing is a mistake that I want to highlight that a lot of newbies make, and that is using justified text alignment. So I'm going to do that here just for the sake of demonstration. People like using justified text alignment because the text lines up perfectly on the left and the right side of the page, and it looks very clean, but there's a problem with readability. When you use justified spacing, the way that Word is modifying the text to always be hitting this right margin like this is that it's modifying the space between every word. And so the spacing between every word is not consistent, and that makes readability really, really bad. Make sure you are using left justified text, otherwise known as ragged right to you fiction writers. So next up, you're going to want to add a running header into the header section of every page. The running title or the running header is just a shortened version of your paper's title. So you can see I've got a relatively long title for this paper. We want to shorten this down for the running header. Some people ask what the running header is. Why do we do it? The reason dates back to when papers used to be submitted in paper. You actually mailed your submission into the journal, and when the journal team was reviewing your paper, they would have, a stack of manuscripts on their desk perhaps, and maybe they found one loose page out on the floor somewhere. If the running header was on there, they could figure out which manuscript that page belonged to, and they could put it back in its appropriate place. So it's a little outdated, but it's a bit of a tradition thing, and you can show good faith towards the journal by doing it because it shows that you're experienced. So to do that, you're going to go into the top inch of your page and just double click. That will bring you into the header like this. You can also do this by going into the Insert tab, but we're just going to do it like this because it's a lot easier. And you're just going to create a shortened version of your title. So here we're going to use, this paper is about loss of defense in plants. And another thing that I like to do here is to use small caps font. So you can go into font up here, small caps, hit OK, and then just double click out of the header. And now that header, in fact, I'm going to change this to Times New Roman because that's what we're using in the rest of the manuscript. And now you've got your running title in the first inch of your page. Okay, so next up, we're going to want to add page numbers and continuous line numbering. So for page numbers, we're going to put these at the bottom right of each page. We want to make sure we avoid using Roman numerals or anything thesis looking like that. So to do that, we're going to go Insert under the head and footer section here, right in the middle. Going to click Page Number, bottom of the page, and plain number 3, so bottom right here, and simply double click out. For continuous line numbering, we're going to come here into the Layout tab, click on Line Numbers under Page Setup, and simply hit Continuous. And that's going to add continuous line numbering from the beginning of your document all the way to the bottom, and this is what you want. It just makes it easier for the reviewers. They can say, hey, there's a typo on line 48 or whatever. I also briefly want to mention font. So whichever font you go with, use anywhere between size 10 and 12 point font. Times New Roman is a good standard because when papers were still printed and they weren't just online, Times New Roman has a better appearance and readability when it's printed with actual ink on paper. These days, Arial is probably better for reading on digital screens. At the end of the day, the journal's going to typeset it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But for the sake of tradition, I recommend you just use Times New Roman or Arial. Okay, so now we've got the main body of our manuscript formatted. Now we need to create a title page. Why do we need to create a dedicated title page? Well, some people ask me that, and the reason is because when the editorial team is handling your manuscript, they can look at the title page and it's got every statistic they need to know about your paper. So not only the title, the authors, the author contributions, but also, how many words are in the manuscript, how many figures are we dealing with, do you have enough citations? All of the key metrics about your paper are contained within that title page. Okay, so I've got a mock-up title page here for the paper that we were using. So first off, in line 5 here, just leave a bit of space to bring everything down. This will depend on how much space you end up using, but we just declare that it's a title page. We include the title of the paper. We include the authors, the author attributions. We need an asterisk to denote who correspondence should be addressed to. So all that means is, when your paper is being handled, whether it gets rejected, whether it gets accepted, minor revisions, whatever that is, who are they going to contact to let know about the status and outcome of that manuscript submission? You also want to include the running title just for clarity. Here, it's quite important to state which article type you are submitting for. So you're essentially asking the journal to consider your submission, and you want to let them know, hey, I want you to consider this as a letter or as an opinion piece or as a review. In this case, this is just a regular research article, so we've denoted that as such here. And then a good kind of best practice move here is to include how many words are in your abstract and your main text. That's just to let the editorial team know that you're not exceeding the limits for the journal. Here I've also put references, and then quite importantly, from an editorial point of view, how many figures are in your paper, right? Because maybe for a review piece, they want you to have, a maximum of 4 figures or something like this. For other shorter, brief opinion pieces, they maybe only allow you to have 1 graphical element. So the next thing you're going to want to do is take your abstract and put it on its own page to be viewed in isolation. In this case, the abstract happens to fall perfectly onto the next page. If that weren't the case, simply come up here and add a page break, and then that'll do that for you. But here, we're just giving the abstract its own page so that the reviewers can read this in isolation without any distraction. If you struggle to write really good abstracts, make sure you check the link in the description. I've written a blog article that will tell you how to write a really good scientific abstract in 6 simple steps. Okay, next up, you're going to want to go through your entire manuscript and check your in-text citations. You want to go through and check every time you cite a paper and make sure it's correct. Remember, you've been working on this manuscript for the last few weeks, the last few months, however long, and maybe you've deleted things here and there, you've worked with other co-authors. Sometimes those citations don't line up anymore, and so you need to make sure that they still are in the correct order, they're referencing the correct paper, all that good stuff. If you don't catch it now, it will be caught by the reviewers, and if they don't line up, they'll be confused and they'll have yet another reason to reject your paper. Don't give them the reason. Check your in-text citations. Okay, next up, you're going to want to go through your references and convert these to plain text. It doesn't matter whether you're using Endnote or Mendeley or Zotero or whichever referencing software you happen to be using. You're going to want to switch these out from the dynamic versions that change every time you update the in-text citation and switch these to manual text. Now, I highly recommend you do this as one of your last steps before you submit, because once you unlink Endnote from the in-text citations, it can't be undone. Save 2 versions of your manuscript, one that still has the citations linked and one that doesn't and is just plain text. Now, I unfortunately don't have Endnote installed on the computer that I'm recording this on, but if I did, I would simply go to the Endnote tab, which should be up here in the top left, and then you can click Convert Citations and Bibliography, and then Convert to Plain Text. By the way, if you want to read the full blog article that goes along with this video, check the link in the description. Okay, second to last step, we are almost there. The next step is dealing with your figures. Now, some journals will allow you to embed your figures directly into the manuscript wherever you see fit and in whichever format you see fit. The problem is that you will eventually have to submit them in their preferred format anyway. So we suggest that you just do it now before you submit to save yourself some time in the future. Most journals are going to ask that you submit your figures as separate files during the online upload process. So for line-based and combination figures, you're going to want to use either PDF or EPS vector-based formats. And then you either embed these directly into the Word document or you upload these separately with their figure captions via the online portal. Pixel-based graphics should be saved at 600 dpi in the .tiff format. Photographic-based figures should be saved at 300 dpi in either .tiff or JPEG with low compression. You're also going to want to take your figure captions and put them on their own page. Start a new page directly after the references titled figure captions, and then just list them: figure caption 1, figure caption 2, and so on. This is also just going to make your life easier when you're going through the upload process, because you'll be able to directly copy and paste these from your figure caption page into the online submission portal. And that's it, we're at the last step now. So the last step is to create a separate file for any supplementary material. Be careful with this because journals don't regulate the format that you submit your supplementary material in. You can pretty much submit this in whatever format you want. Half the time it's not even checked. So make sure you do this well, make sure it's at least logical and aesthetic and is ordered properly, and then upload this as a separate supplementary file. Oh, and quick tip, don't forget to cite your supplementary material in text. That's a mistake that a lot of authors make. They just submit it online, they forget to cite it in the text. Don't make that mistake. If you made it this far, congratulations, your paper should be ready to submit to your dream journal now. One thing you might want to consider doing before submitting it to that journal though is getting it professionally edited. If you want to have your paper formatted by someone else, or you want to have it professionally edited, check out the services that we offer at ruduconsulting.com. Otherwise, you can check the links in the bio. We have a bunch of free resources available. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching. Consider liking, subscribing, and leave a comment for any questions you have down below, and I'll make sure to get back to those as soon as I can. See you guys later.